Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from Mumbai, India, Professor Dr. AKS Suryavanshi. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ashutosh. Thanks, sir. And a very happy morning to you.
Thank you. Professor Suryavanshi is the chief mentor of the GiET Foundation and the co-founder of the Skill and Scale Singapore Private Limited. He is the former vice chancellor of the Karnavati University in Ahmedabad and SGT University in Gurugram, and he has been recognized, awarded, and felicitated several times. So before we talk about GiET Foundation, tell me about your own journey in brief.
Thanks a lot. Actually, the if you look at journey of a teacher is very small and actually not so significant as it looks like. However, I belong to Mumbai and I have close to 28 years of experience, but initial years of life, around 8.5 years, I worked with industries, including Reliance Industries Limited. Later on, I did my full-time PhD and shifted to academics. So last 21 years, I have been academics, both as a teacher, as a professor of marketing, and as well as the way it comes along, a bit of academic administration came, which you cannot avoid, being a dean of a business school, then handling the role of executive director, and finally the vice chancellor. But most important, it was always mentoring the students in the classroom, of the classrooms. I was fortunate to mentor some of the startups also. And as a startup culture, it was interesting to know the students' ideas, little bit help out. Of course, no professor can really transform any ideas.
Right.
It's only that I could only help the students reinforce their own belief in their own ideas.
Well
so that
said.
was one. And along it went as the journey for last so many years. It was primarily doing some of the work for the industry consortium as a part of so many government missions. I was a part of Ministry of Corporate Affairs when MCA 21 project was launched and it was given to DSIR CDC, the Consultancy Development Center under DSIR, Ministry of Science and Technology. So I served on that advisory committee for a couple of years. And apart from that, I have been part of Semiconductor Mission Advisory Board. So basically, the whole journey has been around academics, learning, and also learning from the students.
Well said. So let's talk about the GiET Foundation. Help me understand what the foundation does and what are its main goals.
GiET Foundation is something around almost 15 years old, and a group of academics from India and abroad. We started this foundation. It's a strictly not-for-profit and our registered foundation, which from the income tax, it is exempt from the income tax. But we started this foundation, as you said, not-for-profit, not to start any academic institution of our own. Our aim was to empower and also help the universities and higher educational institutions adopt technology, adopt simulations to do some of those faculty development program and academic curriculum reviews. Of course, we also guided some of the project in Singapore and Indonesia that was around microfinance and e-learning project. So basically, this foundation is guided by a group of academics, which is from, some of them are from Ivy League universities. We don't take any honorarium out of it. We just do our services and help our fellow academics, fellow professors, and also corporate to basically adopt some of those inputs or the action points which can help out either the society at large, specifically women, and also the students.
Wonderful. So can you give us an example of the kind of support you're giving to all these institutions?
Support like, for example, some of those universities, they wanted to adopt a part of curriculum as a simulation. So we did it. Of course, simulation was not designed by us. There are expert companies who do the simulation work. So basically, but to connect and to let them know which part of the course, which part of the subject, or the part of the subject that could be taught through simulations instead of classroom. Of course, the machine learning, etc., came later on. And what we hear about AI embedded learning, this is very recent. It
Right.
is hardly 4 or 5 years old, but earlier it was basically simulations. The simulation still is very popular in the business school, in the universities. So we normally try to help them identify those simulations which can replace teaching in the classroom. So this is one, as far the work is concerned. Second, we also help the institutions, those who are interested, to identify the gaps among the faculty members across different faculties, across different disciplines, and to tell them that which faculty will require how many days of faculty development program to learn the new technique, to learn the pedagogy shift, and also to to create contents. So that was a second element of the program. And the third element, if you see, we do a lot of outreach.
Right.
For example, universities want to do some outreach in the rural area. So we help them with the structure of a rural area. I've been part of selection committee for Piramal Foundation for Ashoka Fellow, which there is a very popular program by Piramal Foundation, which we help them out, choose some of those bright young minds out of IIT Bombay and some of the other institutions. So it's not very straight funnel, but anything that comes around higher education, learning, micro entrepreneurship, we try to help out.
And you have a lot of mentors in the foundation.
True.
Help me understand the role of these mentors and how do they contribute to your mission?
These mentors, it's a pro bono, of course, and all we could take here is a cup of coffee, probably. That's all. But these mentors are driven by self. And suppose we identify an institution where they require some of the help in a given area. For example, someone needs the help into insurance and try to identify some new training program out of insurance sector.
Right.
Then we have a mentor from insurance sector whom we connect. We do the work. Of course, the institutions sometimes pay. They are required to pay for basically the travel or the expenditure required for the advisory. But 90% it is pro bono. So these mentors come along and they bring their a lot of experiences that they have gained out of their own practice, out of their own corporate life or academic life, and they share the knowledge and show them the path. So this is one part. Second part is that sometimes we also have an in-residence. And that's how I look up to you also. I'm going to trouble you very soon for this small request to help out. So we request them to travel, be in residence, and it's a free format. Free format, like students and group of faculty is free. There's no agenda. The expert is in the residence, and you ask, can you just meet out and find your own ways out? So
Very
instead of doing,
So the other challenge that I have seen every time, there are so many different mentors, is that from the perspective of the foundation, how do you maintain quality of programs?
Quality of programs, the way I said that we do not deliver in-campus program because that's delivered by the specific institution themselves. So we are only as per the content, the structure part of it, not the execution part of it.
Right.
So execution they do, but however, we normally set a benchmark. For example, if somebody wants to set up, let's say, a microbiology lab, then we try to have a benchmark in the microbiology lab and get expert and help them out. What are those equipments, instruments that they will require to set it up as per their budget? Because budget can be infinite, but every institutions may not have infinite budget.
Correct.
And there are very few corporate universities in India, which is a very good sign. I think should have happened at least 30 years back.
Right.
When government started withdrawing from establishing their own institutions, and not in so many numbers as they could, and leaving it to the open dynamics. But instead of individual setting up the institutions, it's a corporate now. For example, Bennett University, VIT University, Shivnadar University, Manipal was one, even Amity University, which I regard a lot. So Amity University has set up several institutions. And if you look at Mahindra University out of Hyderabad, and many other universities, also Ajim Premji University out of Bangalore,
correct,
and so on and so forth. And I heard that a couple of more universities are being set up and institutions primarily funded by the corporate and even run by the corporate. So that is a good sign. So as for the quality, so normally we maintain the benchmark and we try to reach out that, okay, this is the benchmark. And this you can adopt in phase. Normally, we give 3 phases, sir. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because some institutions do not have that kind of capital for the year 1.
Right.
So we say, okay, instead of waiting, let's start slow. And phase 2, you could go, and phase 3, you can go. So that's how we work. And mentors help out.
Fascinating. So now let's talk a little bit about higher education in India. And you have been at the helm of several institutions. My first question is that what are some of the unique challenges Indian universities face when you compare them to their international competitors?
There are plenty, but I think, the first is that content and the structure of the content. And the third is the pedagogy, that is delivery.
Right.
Because international universities are mostly, basically, the students, a lot of peer learning is there. And of course, in India also, there are the top institutions, some of the IIMs do pretty well, IITs do pretty well. But if you look at the overall, around 1130 plus universities in India, including central government, state universities, and the private state universities, plus deemed universities, around, if you look at 21 IIMs, around 20 IITs,
correct,
around 32 NITs, and similar 36, 37 central universities, triple IITs, and Indian Institute of Science, which is very apex. They are numerous, as far the basic science is concerned.
Right.
They are. But if you compare around 40,000 colleges of higher education, 1130 universities, so these efforts are very less. So what we suffer normally is that the quality of content, because we are still not able to adopt the content which is good, or maybe we lack the teachers who can teach those content. The second aspect is the structure. How do we do? For example, the student ratio is very poor still. It's not as good as international universities. The ratio is less. The third aspect is that there's more emphasis on the classroom teaching instead of beyond the classroom learning, because then the teachers are supposed to do a lot of other work. For example, they are supposed to do the real intramural projects, extramural projects, their own research, working with the students, working with the corporate. So these activities are not comparable to the developed economy, not in that number. So this is the one challenge we find. But of late is that the challenge about what to do with the technology. We are a bit slow to adopt technology. We are still wondering whether we should go hybrid mode, whether we should be completely 80% the classroom delivery. And this artificial intelligence embedded or enabled classroom is just starting. There is no going back. We'll have to adopt with a caution. So here we are lacking a bit.
The other thing that I have seen with universities outside, whether it's in the West or even in the East, there is a very close relationship that universities have with industry. Do you see this as a challenge for Indian universities, or do you think this is changing?
So this has been always a challenge right after independence. And when the around 1975, 80, more I'll say about when the new economic policy, the liberalization came under Dr. Manmohan Singh prime ministership in 1991. And then more in number around when the new economic policy was revised around 2000. So 23 years time, a lot of water has flown down the Ganga. However, we find that, yes, this is a challenge that remains as far as the interface between academics and the corporate is concerned. It is increasing. To some extent, academics, we are also not reaching out to the corporates as we should because of lack of budget, again, lack of faculty. Because if the faculty ratio is less, the faculty you need on the campus to teach. If the faculty ratio is higher, then you have, but again, it's not a generalization. Some of the institutions have done tremendously well. They're as good as the developed economy. But if you look at overall the sector, so I'm speaking from the sector perspective, yes, we lack a lot. And the second element, the corporates are also divided. For example, if you go through the Nifty 50 companies, top 50, of course, they also keep on changing indexes. And the BSE, the top 30 companies, let's say top 250 companies out of India, listed companies. Not all are also open. And they also have a lens that which institution they would open. So some of the institutions or universities may be very small, very young, but the big corporates may not like to engage them because they are not very sure of their, I will say, intention, capability, or also the resources.
Well said.
So they are not very sure about whatever areas they could. So that is one element. But however, of late, what is happening is that some of the academics, the professors themselves are trying to take the lead and reach out, and this is increasing of late. This is a good sign.
Well said. Great response. Thank you. The other thing is that I've often noticed that Indian universities are not producing enough PhDs or not doing enough research. I mean, you are a product on and you've done your PhD, but what is it that is holding back so much more research in our universities?
So there are two questions. One is that the institutions are not producing as many PhD as required. The response against that, I'll put it very simple. One is that the PhD, anybody who wants to do the PhD, the financial support and resources are not adequately provided. Most of them, you'll find the developed economy, the fees, tuition fees is waived off, and they will get endowment, they will get some free ship, and also professors under whom they engage them. In India, it is not. The PhD, the student have to pay themselves. They have to take care of their boarding, lodging, and all the expenditure. So this holds back those people who wish to do the full-time PhD and shift to academics, or after graduation or the post-graduation, some of them would like to straight away start earning, even if they have urge for doing a PhD, but PhD takes almost 4 years.
Right.
So leaving 4 years without salary, without income, it is very difficult for even the brightest of the mind.
Right.
So this is the lack of funding, lack of faculty, resources. This is one. But on the flip side, it is good that we are not producing as many, because then it will become like unemployable graduates. We produce a lot of engineers, hardly 15-20% are really having a skill or employable. So PhD, if somebody has to, ask me, I'll say, please have only full-time PhD on the campus, at least for 1 year, if not more, at the full-time residential. That's the only way to produce a good PhD. Of course, as I say, IIT, IIMs all have a full-time ones, and they do support financially. There are a lot of facilities. But then again, I say they are all limited to 100, 75, 100 institutions. So that is one. That is one which is definitely holding them. As far as the research is concerned, research incentive is lacking, because if you put the faculty in the classroom, let's say for 3-4 hours daily, so on an average, if I say the privately owned institutions who are not funded by the top promoters, corporate promoters, or the way I mentioned about institutions like MIT, Manipal, Shiv Nadar, etc. Then the faculty is supposed to teach almost 16 to 18 hours per week, so that there is no time for them to do the research. Internationally, so much of workload is not there.
Right.
So these two are the yes.
Well said. My next question is on technology, and you mentioned a few minutes ago that we are not using technology as efficiently. But what, in your opinion, has been the impact of the digital transformation on higher education?
It has been off late. It has shouted. I'll say it's not a whispering. It has just shouted. And digitalization was earlier also when things came. But then of last 4 or 5 years, earlier we had at most Moodle as a repository ERP. Then the ERP, several other ERP came, even by Oracle, the PeopleSoft, TCS came with their own ERP. Some of the universities went through the customized ERP, and they started putting the digital content. But of late, what is happening is that it has liberated students from, I'll say, photocopies. You'll find earlier a student doing 30, 40 photocopies almost every day, or making notes. So that part, instead of making photocopies and making notes, at least that much time the students have got to go through more of a studies, have the peer discussions, go through a lot of new, which is tech-driven learning, also online learning. So that is one. Second, the technology in the classroom, it has happened. Some of the universities, which is increasing every year, have started offering access to online content, whether it's by Coursera, whether it's by Upgrad, whether it's by SWAYAM, which is by UGC. So they have access. So it's not that the student can learn everything in the classroom.
Right.
So that is taken place. But on other side, even faculty is a great input has come because we have repository of a lot of knowledge, a lot of data. So earlier data finding, data digging, I'll say, used to take a lot of time. So now data digging is not taking a lot of time. And second is data analysis. Now the technology is doing analysis for us. So that is also saving some time, I'll say. But the negative part is that it is also killing our natural intelligence and natural instinct or natural analytical part, which used to come through a human interface.
Very interesting.
So that is also a negative part which is happening. Yes.
Very interesting. So I've got time for one more question for you, and I want to talk to you about the National Education Policy 2020. I wanted to get your perspective, Dr. Suryavanshi, on the impact of the National Education Policy 2020 on the future of higher education in India.
So that's a very good question, sir, that you asked. And the present government headed by Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, this was the best that could happen to higher education. The National Education Policy implementation that 2020 was, of course, implemented fully, I can say, from 2022, but 2023, definitely it is all across universities. It has helped in many ways, and I list few. One, it has given flexibility to the students to learn, go back to the work, come back, begin from where they left. So, for example, all the undergraduate program now adds 4 years. I'm talking about honors program or the research program, which is at par with US, Canadian universities. So that is good. So that's one part where the students after first year, due to any region, even medical, earlier there was no other way than the dropout. But now a student can get a certificate after first year and rejoin after 1 year and get a diploma after second year and pass degree after third years. And honors after 4 years or honors with research, then they don't do the masters. They can do for PhD. Those who want to go to academics, of course, PhD is not required for those who do not want to go to academics. So this is one, which is the multi-time entry exit. So this is one. Second is that the levels of internship and apprenticeship, embedded internship, this is a good thing. Which almost 12 to 14 to 16 weeks also in some cases. The universities are free to provide them apprentice. One was the industrial internship, which was typically 6 to 8 weeks. But now it is apprenticeship, which is almost like, learning while doing the job. Or maybe you are also getting the actual work and then get a job in those companies or the work. So you are getting a trade and you are learning. So this is second. But third aspect is that migration across the universities. For example, one student may not get into, let's say, a top university. But after 2 years for the lateral, he or she may get into the third year into the top university. Yes, so this provision is there now, which helps. Another element which is not directly part of NEP, but is academic bank of credit. So all the universities now are supposed to upload their scores and the grades in the academic bank of credit, and the students and the other university stakeholders are simply can access and download their grades. So it saves a lot of time from the student perspective, if you see, and also employers. So it helps them a lot. Few more element is that the language is, you can acquire basic learning into your mother tongue. So the vernacular language has been strengthened. Now the engineering can be taught and is being taught in Hindi or in Tamil, and slowly, and nothing wrong, because at undergraduate level, we don't expect a student to be everybody to go out and abroad and do the work. So if you're working with the laborers, workers, I'll say levels in Tamil Nadu or Kerala who speak Malayalam, it's good that you understand the technology in that language. Of course, English is the binding language that is being taught.
Well said.
So this is there. So a lot of emphasis on research also has been there.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Very nice policy.
Fantastic. Thank you. And on that note, Professor Suryavanshi, thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey. Thank you for talking to me about the wonderful work GiET Foundation is doing, all the amazing work the mentors are doing for the foundation. Thank you also for speaking to me about so many different aspects of higher education in India. And finally, thank you for talking to me a little bit about the new education policy. I think it's an eye-opener for me, who's not an educator or an academician, but I think some of the changes you have spoken out about give me a lot of confidence that we're heading in the right direction. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.